Welcome to the Productivity Show, a podcast where we believe that you can get the important things done without having to sacrifice your health, family, and things that matter to you. My name is Tan. I'm the founder and CEO of Asian Efficiency, where we help people become more productive at work and in life. And today I'm joined by my co-host, Brooks Duncan. How are you today, Brooks?
I'm great. We all know I love talking about apps, so I'm excited for today.
Yeah, we know there are a ton of productivity apps out there. So we thought it would be fun to kind of go deeper in one specific category of apps, and that is wellness apps. So if you're familiar with the T framework, we always talk about time, energy, and attention. And wellness or health or however you want to categorize it is a big part of our productivity, right? If you don't have your health, if you're not feeling good about yourself, it's kind of difficult to be productive. And so we thought we would run through some apps that we really like, and we kind of categorize them in three different sections. So we have an app for focus, so how to zero in on what's important to you. We have an app for energy, so how to have the energy to do what you want to do. And then the third one is kind of like a catch-all, what we like to call balance. So how to be happier, how to be more grounded and more mindful about what you do. So we have each one app for each category. So we have 6 apps in total that we are going to be recommending to you here today. So get your wallets ready, be ready to try some trials. And I'm excited to start diving in here. So I know, like I said earlier, there are so many apps out there. So if you're looking for a new productivity app that's a little bit out of the norm, I think you're going to be really enjoying today's episode. We've tried a lot of different things, and maybe you're feeling like unfocused right now. Maybe you don't have a lot of energy. Maybe you feel a little bit out of balance. I think today's episode is going to have an app for you here today. And I know many of you are always looking for new apps and things to try. So definitely pay attention. And everything that we will mention will be in the show notes. So you can go to theproductivityshow.com/393. So Brooks, do you want to kick it off here with our top 3 favorite resources?
Yeah, we like to start every episode like this. And like Tan mentioned, this is one of those episodes where that link, theproductivityshow.com/393 will come in really handy because we're going to be sharing a lot of resources. So our top 3 resources, number 1 is a book. It's called The Power of Full Engagement. It's by Jim Lower and Tony Schwartz. This is kind of like the Bible almost about energy. In fact, the tagline is managing energy, not time, is the key to high performance. And so if you want to learn more about how energy impacts productivity and that sort of thing, that book is a great place to start. That's number 1. Number 2 is another book. It's called Slideology by Nancy Duarte. And it's a book I've had for a long time, and I go back to it quite often. And it's about creating effective presentations and the visuals around that. You know, we've all been in those talks where there's like walls and walls of bullet points and stuff like that, but there's a lot better ways to get across information when you're presenting it to people. So Slideology is a great book for that. And then finally is something called Beat Elite, which I know you're a big fan of, Tan. And basically what that is it's a beet powder for extra energy and endurance. And so if you're feeling like you could use some of that, try the Beat Elite powder. And we'll have links to all these, like Tan said, in the show notes at theproductivityshow.com/393.
Yeah. And next week's episode is our hot takes on the latest news in the productivity industry. So this is going to be really fun because we're going to be giving our hot takes and opinions of what's happening and something that you want to be aware of what's going on. So be sure to tune in again next week. And one thing I want to clarify before we start diving into the apps is that we want to say that none of the apps that we mention here are sponsored. I think it's really important to say that these picks that we have here today are not influenced by sponsorships or anything like that. These are things we've used personally. And if an app we recommend here has sponsored us in the past, we will definitely mention that. But I want to make sure that all these recommendations are not sponsored or not paid for this whatsoever. So with that out of the way, let's start with our favorite wellness apps here. And the first category that we have is Focus. So I'll go first. And my recommendation here today is an app called Focus at Will. So this is available on web, iOS, and Android. And what it does, it basically plays music to help you relax and focus. So I like to think of it as like productivity music. And a while ago, I actually interviewed the co-founder in TPS393. and I talked to Will, and we had a great time. It's one of my favorite episodes I've ever recorded. If you've listened to that one, you know it gets a little crazy because he starts to demo music and genres live on the podcast as we're recording the podcast. And so if you haven't checked that out yet, go to theproductivityshow.com/353. And I've been a user for probably 6-7 years now. I have a paid subscription. And basically the way it works is you set a timer. So it's kind of like a Pomodoro timer in a way. You set a timer for how long you want the music to play for, and then it just starts playing. And as you're just working on your stuff, you just feel a little bit more relaxed. You feel a little bit more focused. And what's interesting about the podcast episode I did with the co-founder is that one of the things I learned, even though I was a longtime user, is you actually have to figure out what genre works best for your brain type. And so everyone has like a different genre that they resonate most with. And for me, I kind of like naturally discovered that as I just kept using the tool. But if you're brand new to this, you want to make sure that when you first sign up for it, you take their little quiz, and then we'll actually recommend you what you should listen to. So Brooks, have you ever used something like this?
Yeah, I don't use Focus at Will specifically, but I definitely am a big believer in having sounds and music that you can use to just get in whatever like state you want to get in, whether it's like getting focused to work, whether it's relaxing. And I find it really, really powerful. And that's why we wanted to include this type of app in a wellness episode, because a lot of times, at least for me, I don't know about you, Tam, when I sit down to work, when I sit down to focus, a lot of times, I just have this like jumble in my head, thoughts about other stuff going on. And it's kind of hard to get focused and have that kind of mental segregation. So by having this type of sounds or music that you use, everyone has different stuff to do. It can really help you like get in the zone, either getting into work or getting out of work. Either way, it can be really helpful. So this is a great pick.
Yeah, I love the fact that it also integrates with Sonos. So if you have a Sonos system at home, like I do, you can go, very, very crazy with it if you want to, where the whole room or the whole house is just productivity music playing all the time, and you just feel really great about yourself. So again, that is my pick, Focus at Will. I'm curious to hear, Brooks, what is your pick under the focus category?
Yeah, so my pick for the focus category is an app called Be Focused, and it's available for Mac, for Windows, for iOS, and it's, sorry, Machado, you're gonna have to edit this part. I just realized there's a mistake in the show notes. It's available for Mac, for mobile. For Mac users, it's available on SetApp, which kind of like the Netflix for Mac apps. If you're on a different platform, then no problem. There's a web alternative called Pomodoro. So that's a great free tool as well. And basically what it does is it's a really simple but really nice looking Pomodoro timer. And there's lots and lots of Pomodoro apps out there that do things like blocking and all that sort of stuff. But I really like using something really simple. Now, you might be wondering, why on earth would a Pomodoro app be included in a wellness episode? And the reason for that is because, at least I find, it can be really hard once you get sitting down to working. It can be really hard to do things like take breaks. And this is especially true if you work from home. It can be really, really difficult to limit that time that you spend working, and it can bleed into other things. And also, if you have other non-work related things to do, then it can be really hard to make that switch. And vice versa, if you're in a situation where you've got like a lot of personal stuff that's kind of like cluttering up and things you feel like you should be doing, using something like a Pomodoro timer can be really helpful to be like, okay, I know I have this whatever banking stuff I need to work on for signing up for a mortgage or something like that. I know I have all this going on, but I really need to focus on what I need to focus on. So I find using a simple app like Be Focused is really, really helpful for focus in general, but overall wellness.
All right. So before we move on to the second category here, which is energy, I want to give a quick shout out to our TPS Plus subscribers. So if you're new to the Productivity Show, we have an upgraded version of the podcast where you get our episodes ad free. You get them a week earlier, and you get some extra bonus materials as well when you sign up for this upgraded version of the podcast. And if you're interested, you can go to theproductivityshow.com/plus. So that's PLUS. And if you sign up for an annual program, you actually get a T-shirt as well that says "One Tweak a Week." It's been really popular among our members. And if you ever see someone wearing that T-shirt, you know that they are a TPS Plus subscriber and listener. So I want to thank all of the members that have subscribed to us, and thank you for your support. And if you're interested in supporting the Productivity Show, if we helped you in any shape or form, and you want to support us, go check out TPS Plus. Again, theproductivityshow.com/plus. All right, let's move on to the second category here, which is energy. So, like we've mentioned before, the T framework is all about time, energy, and attention. And so, what's an app that you can use to help you with your energy? And the one that I've picked today is called Rise Science. So, it's RISE and then the word science. So, it's available on iOS and Android. And basically, what it does, it measures your sleep debt, and it gives you a schedule of when you have lots of energy and when you have kind of like a slump in the day based on your circadian rhythm. So when the app can measure when you're falling asleep and when you're waking up, it can actually predict based on your internal clock when you have like lots of energy so you can focus. And then also when you have like a natural predictable slump. So for some of us, that might be like the infamous afternoon slump. And I recently got the chance to talk to the co-founder of this, and we were talking about the sleep science behind it and everything. And I'm actually interested in getting this person on the podcast very soon, so stay tuned for that. But I think it's one of the few apps that measures sleep debt, because we might have heard about the term sleep debt, but did you know that sleep debt is based on the last roughly 14 days of your sleeping pattern? So if you've been sleeping poorly over the last 2 years or so, you actually don't have to worry about accumulating a lot of quote unquote sleep debt. It's actually based on the last 2 weeks. So that's something I learned from talking to the co-founder. And what I also like about it is that when it learns about your sleep pattern, it can also integrate with the Aura Ring data. So I usually use an Aura Ring. So in conjunction with Rise Science, it can actually calculate, okay, Tan, it seems like you woke up at 7 a.m. today. Based on that, it takes about 60 to 90 minutes to kind of get out of this groggy feeling. And then you start to get into your first peak of energy. So I actually know based on that, that roughly around 9:30 or 10 is when I start to feel most energized and focused, because it's based on the circadian rhythm. So I think it's a really nice complementary app to whatever other wellness or health tracking app that you might be using. So go check it out. It's called Rise Science.
Yeah, I've never used that app. You've mentioned it once or twice on the podcast before, and I've always been curious. So I think I'm really going to have to check it out in the live stream to this that we have with our TPS Plus and Productivity Academy members. Phil says, he goes, "It's helpful to know about sleep debt. I was building up a mortgage here, a sleep mortgage. That's when you know. That's when you know you need Rise Science." But yeah, these sleep apps I think are going to be more and more popular because people are realizing that it's just more and more important. And you mentioned the Aura Ring. That's not one of your apps that you chose, but it's interesting that it integrates with Rise Science. For those listening, if you're interested, Tan did a really interesting article about his Aura Ring and how he uses it. So we'll make sure to link to that in the show notes because it's very, very enlightening. All right, so Tan's energy app is Rise Science. Mine is called Strong, and Strong is a digital workout tracker. It's available for mobile platforms, so iOS and Android. And what I like about it is there's a million workout apps out there. But the thing I like about Strong is, again, it's really, really simple. I'm really into simple apps. Like I don't really like things that do too much because then it just gets too complicated for me. So I find it's like really simple, really easy to use. It's got built-in exercises that you can kind of chain together to make workouts, or it will suggest ones for you as well. And you can build your own program. So if you're following some other program, you can put that into into strong. And I like it because it kind of gets out of your way. It's very audio, so you can hear when say rest timer is done or it's time to do something else. It keeps you moving along, but you can also look back and it tells you when you have personal records and stuff like that. Yeah, lots of visualizations, lots of integrations if you want them, but if you don't, it just gets out of your way. So yeah, I really, really like Strong. In the live stream, one of our listeners, Bobby, mentions that he works with a trainer and he really likes the Trainerize fitness app. So we'll make sure to link that as well. So his trainer can see all his stats from his workouts and sleep and steps. So it's really helpful to have that accountability, he says. So we'll make sure to link to Trainerize as well. How about you, Tan? I know you work with a trainer. Do you even need an app, or does everything kind of like stored on your trainer's system?
I think I've mentioned before how infamously lazy I am. So just to take it even a step further, I don't even know like how much I can push or what kind of weights I can do because my trainer keeps track of everything. So that's also why he's getting paid to train. But yeah, we have a machine that we use. It's called the ARX machine. It's kind of like a revolutionary machine, but basically it also tracks digitally all of my workouts. So he doesn't really have to do that much, but we kind of have an idea of like what's going on and what my performance is looking like. And this goes way beyond an app. And one of the things I do want to point out before we move on to the third section here is that, you know, apps here are helpful, but at the end of the day, what's more impactful is the overall T framework and how you approach it. So you know how we always talk about time, energy, and attention? Like an app is a nice supplement to whatever you're trying to focus on. Let's say you're trying to focus on energy. An app can help with that. But at the end of the day, we really have to figure out like what are the big wins that allow us to really get to where we want to be, right? So for energy, a lot of times it's optimizing your sleep. Like what are some sleep hygiene practices that you can, improve upon? Is it going to bed earlier? Is it maybe relaxing more before you fall asleep? Same thing with time, right? We have a lot of like apps to help you with focus and stuff, but an app won't fix a bad process or habit. And I think that's the main takeaway I want to make sure people have here as well, is that the apps here are very helpful, but think of it as like icing on the cake because we want to make sure that the foundation is really good. And so if you're unfamiliar with the T framework, I want to recommend that you check out our blog post that we have on this. We also have an episode on this as well here on the Productivity Show. So you can go to theproductivityshow.com/T. So that's spelled as TEA. But like I said, the apps are helpful and it can kind of guide you and encourage you and support you in many ways, but you still have to do quote unquote the work. But again, it can be a valuable too. So I want to make sure I put that caveat there as well.
Yeah, in the live stream, Giacomo says that app makes a great point that apps can help you with the gamification of your habits as you're building these habits. But the example that you gave of sleep is a good one. Like Rise Science can only do so much if you're staying up till 2 a.m. binge watching Netflix or something like that. And Kimberly mentions Habitica as a really helpful app for this as well, for building that habit. All right, so that is focus and energy. So our third category, our final category, is balance. So what do you have for us today, Tan?
So my app recommendation here is something I've mentioned on the podcast before. I'm a huge fan of, and I actually got recommended this to me by my sports psychologist, and it's an app called Daylio. So it's spelled Daylio, Daylio, and it's available on iOS and Android. And basically, it's a mood tracking app for yourself. It can also have like a journal feature and stuff like that, but I mostly use it for tracking my mood. So every day around 8 o'clock, I get a notification that says, hey Tan, do you want to track what your day was like today? And then I click on the notification. It will open up the app, and then I can kind of rate on like a 5-scale emoji of how I felt about today. So it could be like from bad to like feeling rad, as they like to call it. And so I've been using this for about 2.5 years pretty religiously. And I like that it's very visual. It's very easy. And as you enter the ranking or rating for your day, you can then start adding like, what did you do that day? So did you sleep well? Did you work out that day? Did you walk a lot? You just like literally tap on the screen all the different icons that you can customize. And then from there, it takes maybe like, 15 seconds to do. But I have a record now of the last 2.5 years, and I can kind of see like, oh, certain months I was definitely feeling more elevated in terms of my mood, and some other months I felt a little bit more low. And then kind of gives you an idea of like what happens. I can actually also analyze for you, based on, your best days. This is what you oftentimes do. Like for me, I know it's sleeping pretty well, being around friends and family. Like these are two common things I've noticed that generally make me feel really good. Whereas if I have poor days, it's oftentimes when I don't exercise, something bad happened that day, and I usually have a note of that. And so I don't use it as a journal. I really just use it as a way to track my mood.
I remember reading about somebody who set up something like this, a dashboard like this in Notion. But for me, going back to like what I said earlier about simplicity, if there's an app that is just simple and does something like this, that is the one I'm more likely to use. I haven't used Dailyo, even though you mentioned it, but this conversation we're having right now has convinced me to just do it as like an end of day check-in, because I have this space in my journal that I call EOD thoughts. And my idea for that was, because I tend to journal in the morning, but my thought was, I'll go back at the end of the day and like put some thoughts at the end of the day. And it literally never happens. Like I probably did it 3 times and that was it. So I think I'm going to, right after we record this, I think I'm downloading Dailyo and going to try it out. All right. So Tan's balance app is Dailyo. So mine is a little different. It's called All Trails, and it's available on the web. It's available on iOS. It's available on Android. And basically what All Trails is this big app slash map app slash community slash guide. It's like a whole bunch of different things for like trails and walking paths and hiking locations and camping. Even if you don't really hike and camp, it can still be really, really useful. And what I like about it, it has these like detailed maps and instructions for all sorts of paths or trails wherever you want to go, so you can just follow along. And if you're worried about getting lost, you can literally follow. It'll tell you where to go, or you can just kind of like look at the map. But it also has these trip reports, because what it does, going back to what Giacomo was saying about the gamification and the prompting to build the thing, is when you finish a trip, it asks you to rate it in stars. It asks you to upload photos if you want. It asks you like how it was. And basically you can read others' experiences. So it can be really handy for, because a lot of times you read maps and stuff like that, or maybe you read a guidebook or something, it'll tell you about a trail or a path, where this will be like, hey, it's really muddy just before the 3rd bridge, so watch out. You get these like really up-to-date, really detailed instructions from people. And it's handy for trips, like if you're going somewhere to hike or do a walk or something like that. But it's also really handy, even just looking at your local area. I found a lot of little paths and parks and trips, or not trips, but paths and parks and little paths around where I live that I had no idea. And I've lived in this neighborhood for almost 20 years now. And I discovered things in my area that I didn't even know about just by bringing it up on All Trails. So it's a free service and app, but if you want to be able to download information for offline, then it's a paid plan, the Pro, I think they call it. Yeah, it's really great. So All Trails is the one I've been using.
Oh, that's awesome. I actually need something like this, because oftentimes when I go on a trip with my girlfriend, we like to go for hikes. And oftentimes it requires a Google search. So you kind of go and Google and then hike, and then, you see all these different pages. And I hate the pages where you go, oh, I want to read the reviews of those. And then they ask you to sign up and pay for it. And I go, no, I don't want to. I just want to go for an easy hike. So this app sounds like the solution for me, especially when you're traveling. So I'll have to check that out. Thanks for recommending that. All right, that wraps up the picks that we have here today. So we have 6 of them. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and got something out of it. And you might be pretty eager right now to download some of this stuff. But as an action step, we always want to make sure you leave with an action item here. And what I recommend you do today is don't try to implement all of these apps at the same time. I recommend that you just pick one app and then try it out for a week or 2 weeks, and then move on to the next app. So you kind of build this new habit of using this app and get familiar with it. So what's the one app that's going to make the biggest difference to you here today? And download it, give it a try, and see how it goes. And next week's episode is again our hot takes on the latest news in the productivity industry. So you don't want to miss that. And again, everything that we mentioned today will be in the show notes. So you can go to theproductivityshow.com/393. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next Productive Monday.